Traveling a lot. So I just came from Atlanta. From here, I'm going to go to Nevada, then I'm going to go to Iowa, then I'm back in Chicago. We've been traveling everywhere. And everywhere we've gone, we've seen these enormous crowds. I mean, we had 20,000 people in Atlanta, Georgia. We had 20,000 people in Austin, Texas. We had 15,000 people in Oakland, California. Sometimes, as I'm looking out over these crowds, which look like this crowd here today, people from all walks of life, every age group, every race, every faith, I ask myself, what are they all doing here? And I'd like to think that it's because I'm just so fabulous, but actually, my wife says that's not it. My wife informs me, and she's absolutely correct, that the reason people are coming out in record numbers is because the country is ready for change. They are hungry for something new. People want to turn the page and start a new chapter in American history. And it's understandable why people want something new because, let's face it, the last 6 years haven't gone so well. I mean, we have had a continuation of a healthcare crisis where not only families are being bankrupted, but it's bankrupting our federal government. Everywhere I go, all across the nation, I meet mothers who are trying to figure out how to keep insurance for their children. All across the country, I meet senior citizens trying to figure out, even with this bloated prescription drug bill, how they're going to pay for prescription drugs. People know that something's wrong when the insurance companies and the drug companies have spent $1 billion on lobbying over the last decade. And it is because of that that we don't have the kind of health care that we deserve when we spend $2 trillion on health care in America, twice as much as any nation on earth.
And that's wrong.
And it is wrong. It is wrong for our economy, and it's wrong morally. And so people are tired of that. People are sick and tired of an education system that claims to leave No Child Left Behind, but has left the money behind for No Child Left Behind, that is leaving millions of children all over the country unprepared for the new global economy. And people also notice that, we're not able to, not only are our children not prepared for college, but even those who are prepared for college can't afford it. And again, we see banks and financial institutions that are taking $8 billion out of the student loan system, actually giving inducements to college administrators to jack up student loans that our children are going to end up being burdened with debt all across the country. And so people are tired of that. People are sick and tired of an economy that is doing very well for some. I mean, if you're a CEO on Wall Street, you're feeling pretty good right now, because you're making more in a day than the average worker is making in a year. But all across the country, people are struggling trying to figure out, how do I fill up my gas tank? How do I save for my child's college education? How do I save for my retirement? All across the country. And then, of course, there's a war that should have never been authorized, that should have never been waged, a war that's cost us $500 billion and thousands of lives, a war that has made us less safe and fundamentally diminished our standing in the world. And so people look at the track record and they're not real happy. They're not real happy with the absence of an energy policy that leads us to send billions of dollars to some of the most hostile nations on earth. And in the bargain, ends up melting the polar ice caps and fundamentally changing the climate of our planet. And this is all before you get to Scooter. A colleague of mine, Dick Durbin, noticed that, even Paris Hilton got some jail time. And so people are tired of the notion that we should have an attorney general that thinks the Constitution is an inconvenience, that it's a nuisance to be avoided instead of the foundation of our democracy and the repository of our ideals and our values. So people want a change. They don't want a government that says it can't do or it won't even try to solve the problems of ordinary people. A government that is too often determined on the basis of who's making campaign contributions and who's got the fanciest lobbyists. You know, we had a little debate yesterday, and there was some conversation about lobbyists and the kind of influence that they have on Washington. And let me tell you, if you don't think that the oil companies and the drug companies and the insurance companies don't have a disproportionate influence in Washington, then you've been in Washington too long, and you're part of what needs to change. We've got to fundamentally transform how business is done in Washington. But here's the thing, Utah. The reason you're here today, the reason people are coming out all across the country, is not just because you want to be against something. It's because you also want to be for something. You know, we're tired of a politics that's just slash and burn and negative and divisive, a politics based on fear, instead of a politics based on hope. People want to feel as if we still have the capacity as a nation to come together, regardless of our differences of race or faith or region, and find a common purpose, to find a higher purpose. You know, that people, I think, want to believe that it's still possible for us to understand each other as Americans, that we've got mutual responsibilities for each other. So if there is a single child somewhere in Utah that is impoverished, then that impoverishes all of us. If there's a veteran somewhere who is homeless, that diminishes the patriotism of all of us. That idea that I am my brother's keeper, that I am my sister's keeper, that we have the capacity to share the good times and the bad times, and that we rise and fall together, that we're not just each of us on our own. That idea has to express itself not just through our religious bodies, not just through our families, it's got to express itself through our government. And that's part of what is bringing people out, because they feel that we're on the brink, maybe, of rediscovering that notion of what it means to be an American. Now, when I talk like this, sometimes people in Washington, they get kind of cynical. They say, "Oh, he's talking about hope again. You know, he's such a hope peddler. He's a hope monger." But I stand guilty as charged. I am hopeful, and I'm hopeful for two reasons. I'm hopeful, first of all, because of all of you, because I believe in the core decency of the American people. I think that Americans want to do the right thing, but they need some leadership to help them come together to do the right thing. And that's what I want to provide the United States of America, a uniting vision of how we can move forward and meet the challenges that we face. That makes me optimistic. But I'm also optimistic because I know that we've been through greater challenges before. I mean, understand that this is a nation that was founded on a revolution that was improbable. We've been through a civil war. We've been through 2 world wars. We've been through a Cold War. We've been through a Great Depression. We've been through slavery. We've been through Jim Crow. At each and every juncture, as enormous as these challenges were, we were able to come together at some point, and a generation was able to meet those challenges, and we emerged more unified and more prosperous than we were in the past. There is no reason to believe that this generation is any different. There's no reason to believe that we can't solve the problems that we face. Don't let anybody tell you that we can't solve our problems. We can solve them if we come together, if we overcome the divisions, if we overcome the special interests in Washington. There is no reason why we can't create the kind of America that we want to pass on to our children and our grandchildren. I believe that we can do it, and you do too. That's why you're here today. That's why you're here. We know what to do. We know what to do on health care. If we invest in prevention so that every child is getting a regular checkup instead of going to the emergency room for treatable illnesses like asthma, we save money. If we invest in medical technology so that we're reducing bureaucracy and improving quality, we save money. We can save $100 to $150 billion each and every year